This week, today, we're going to continue with the series we've been working on throughout this month, New Thoughts About the Old Book. And this has been kind of fun for me. I am a biblical studies major, so it's always fun for me to dive in here and take some of this stuff and see what we can glean from it and put it into a new thought perspective. So this week, we're going to take a look at a passage from one of my favorite books, and that is the book of Psalms, the Psalms of David. And today we're going to see what goodies we might glean from a passage from Psalm 27. And this is Psalm 27, verses 1 through 3. And it says, speaking of light, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Whom shall I dread? When evildoers came upon me to devour my flesh, my adversaries and my enemies, they stumbled and fell. And though a host encamp against me, my heart will not fear. Though war rise against me, in spite of this, I shall be confident." And so Psalm 27 here is a message of a fearless trust in God. It's a message of faith. It's a message that says my true self, my real self, is God expressing through me as me. And as such, this power, this intelligence within me can always be trusted. And not only can it always be trusted, but what could possibly rise up against it or have any power over it? The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Within each and every one of us burns the light of the divine. "Ye are the light of the world," Jesus said. And when we come to a conscious recognition of our own divinity, of the light that's within us, then we come to a realization of our unity with all. And in that realization of unity, that awakening to our oneness, we discover that we have no need to fear anyone or any situation. The Lord is the strength of my life. Whom shall I dread? See, our true strength comes from within. Our true strength comes from an inner knowledge of our real self. When we come to truly understand that we are nothing less than the magnificent expression of spirit, born to shimmer and shine and radiate, then we'll come to know our true strength. You see, our strength and our light and our salvation are all qualities that we need but recognize. We need but awaken to them. They're not things to go out and find. They're things that are within us that we just need to awaken to. We are the incarnation of Spirit. And in that incarnation, we are, right now, perfect and complete. But we must realize that it is not by our human strength. It's not by that limited thinking, isolated personality that we know as ourselves that we have this courage to ask, "Whom shall I dread?" But rather it's when we employ our inner spiritual strength, which only comes through a heartfelt knowledge, through an inner knowing of our true identity. Our identity as the image and likeness of God. It's then that we can confidently say, "Whom shall I dread?" when evildoers came upon me to devour my flesh, my adversaries and my enemies, they stumbled and fell. And though a host encamp against me, my heart will not fear. Though war rise against me, in spite of this, I shall be confident. So who are these adversaries and enemies? Well, we deal with these adversaries and enemies every single day. Or at least I do. So how many times a day do you deal with thoughts that rise up and tell you things like, you're not good enough to do that. You're way out of your league here with what you're doing. Well, that's a nice dream, but it's only a dream. Yeah, you say you've got perfect health, but what's that headache you're dealing with right now? You can't afford that vacation. Why are you even thinking about it? If you don't get that job soon, you're going to be going without. Or, boy, I sure screwed that up. I've sure made wrong decisions in my life. You see, our adversaries and our enemies aren't things out here. They're in here. Our adversaries and our enemies are all those thoughts of lack and limitation that rise up. All those thoughts of sickness and disease. The attitude of victimhood that we carry around with us. The thoughts of less than and not enough that rise up in our subconscious over and over again and seem to want to, as David said, come and devour us. But you see, most of the time, these thoughts are very subtle. And in fact, we are so used to them that most of the time we're not even aware of them. The enemy is camped at our doorstep, and we sleep unaware of its power. Ernest Holmes, the founder of religious science, says, thoughts are things. But then he goes on to tell us that thoughts are really more than things. They are the cause of things. Then he also tells us of our thoughts, unless we control thought, it will control us. That's a pretty big statement. Unless we control thought, it will control us. The enemy is camped at our doorstep and we're asleep, unaware of its power. We must wake up and become aware of what's going on within us. And the first step then in controlling our thoughts is that. It's becoming aware of them. And my experience is that this is an ongoing challenge. I find new things about myself and my thinking almost every single day that surprise me. Things that I thought I'd moved past long ago, or things I've never even recognized before about myself, still creep up now and then, well, almost every day. And it seems try to devour me. You know, I've never thought of myself as having a victim mentality before. But, you know, I've discovered things about my thinking recently that really reveals this type of thinking within me. If you've ever used phrases such as, well, that's just my luck, or I knew that's what would happen to me, or I just can't get a break, or the phrase I found myself using in addressing God, and address to God, I try so hard, why don't I see results that I want? Ever done that? Those are all victim mentality phrases. Then there are those folks who play out the role of victim because the weather isn't right. Or they're a victim because the car driving in front of them is too slow. Or the line at the drive-thru is too long. Or they received a summons for jury duty. I think we've all played that victim role to some degree. And until we come and recognize that and realize that that's what's happening, we can't do anything about it. We must awaken to these things. We must become aware of what's going on within us, what those thoughts are. Those are the adversaries and enemies that come against us and war against us. These are all things that we would serve ourselves well to become aware of and to recognize these adversaries and enemies as they show themselves to us. And the fact is that there's nothing we could possibly be a victim of other than our own misunderstanding and our own misinformation about who and what we are. Once again, when we discover our true nature, our true unity with the divine, then we discover that there's nothing to be against us, anywhere at any time. God is all. God is the each and every. And there's nothing to be against that which is all. Ernest Holmes says that man's consciousness of God constitutes his real and immortal self. Each person is in direct relationship to the whole. Each is an image of God. And it is in this understanding, this inner realization, that we can say, whom shall I fear? Whom shall I dread? And the answer, of course, is no one and no thing. For as our beautiful song this morning said, there is a light that guides you through the storm. And that light is within us. So becoming aware of our thoughts is vital. But becoming aware of them without doing something to change them is just allowing them to continue waging war against us. We must consciously and purposefully change our thinking. Once again, Ernest Holmes says, there must come a time in our experience when we speak the conviction that is within us. This conviction of the spiritual universe in which we live is real and powerful. The light cannot be borrowed from another. Each has been furnished with the divine torch whose wick burns from the oil of the eternal. We must each find our own light within us, and then allow that light to shine on the circumstances and affairs of our life. And it's in that light that we have nothing to fear, nothing to dread. I've had a dream for many, many years now. A dream of a particular lifestyle. And this, to me, is a grand and glorious dream for me, and of a grand and glorious lifestyle. And Tammy shares in this dream, and we've discussed this, and we've written out what this dream is in real detail. You see, I believe that our life out here, what happens out here, is but a reflection of our consciousness, of our inner attitudes and thoughts and beliefs. And I believe that we choose our life because of that, and we choose our reality. I believe that if we don't like what our life is right now, then we need to change something within our consciousness, change our thinking, and we'll see a change in our outer experiences. I believe that this life, our experience in this realm of living, can be and should be one of joy and peace and contentment and fulfillment and love and abundance. And I believe if we are mindful and aware and focused in our endeavor, and then disciplined and diligent in our efforts, then we will enjoy these tasty fruits of our labor. Those of contentment and fulfillment and love and joy and peace. Now, though we've held this idea or this vision for our life for many years, we have been consciously and purposefully working to realize the fullness of this dream for almost 13 years now. And in our great desire to live this dream, we have spent countless hours asking, demanding, pleading, begging, seeking, knocking, and banging on that proverbial door, all in an attempt to truly know and understand God and ourselves and our relationship one to the other, and what it is we need to do or say or change or be to live this dream. And through this process, we have had many an adversary rise up against us, and many an enemy rear its ugly head. And we have had a multitude of challenges that might have caused us to turn back, to quit, to give up. And there were many, many times when I thought we would. But like David in the Psalm, we decided we cannot give up. We cannot quit. And in spite of all of this that seems to have come against us, we shall be confident. Our heart will not fear. We can't go back. We have opened our heart and our mind to knowing this thing we call God. We have put our faith to work. We have put our beliefs into practice. We have stepped to the edge. We've taken chances. We've pushed the envelope of our own understanding. And in doing this, we have crashed and burned. But we have also soared and triumphed. We have experienced great successes and we have experienced bitter disappointments. We have visited the pits of despair and we have bounded with joy beyond words. And I'm good at bounding. We have known stressful anxiety and we have known that peace which passes understanding. We have been singed by the fires of hell, and we have peered through the gates of heaven. And in and through all of these things, we have come to a deeper and deeper understanding and a greater and greater awareness of God and ourselves and our inseparable relationship one to the other. And it's through these experiences that we learn that it is only through grace, as our song spoke of. It is only through grace that we have any understanding of the infinite. Because it's only when we set our ego aside and allow God to penetrate the depth of our being that we begin to see through that misty veil of life. It is only through grace that we live that life of peace and joy and satisfaction, fulfillment and contentment and love. Because these are all qualities within the fabric of our being. They're not things out here to find. There's nothing we can do to create these things. We can only allow them to show forth through our lives. Once again, life doesn't happen to us, it happens through us. It is only through grace that we can serve. It is not by our power or our will or our vision that we serve, but God's power and God's will, God's vision. It is through these experiences that we have developed then the ability to relate to people on many different levels and in many different ways. We have come to an inner realization, a heart knowing that there is an interconnectedness amongst all people and all things. And that we are all made of the same stuff. And in this, it opens the door to compassion and understanding, forgiveness, and non-judgment. And as that inner realization continues to dawn, we come to know that we as a human family all have the same innate desires, the same innate desire to be loved and to love. We have the same need to be appreciated, to be understood, and to express ourselves. And to some degree or another, we all share in this thing we call suffering. And it's in this awareness that the seeds of compassion and understanding, forgiveness, and non-judgment find solid ground and begin to burst forth in our lives. Well, our dream is as alive today as it ever was. And yes, we continue to deal with the adversaries and enemies that arise out of our own consciousness. But we understand and realize that it is through the awareness that this inner war brings about that a change in consciousness can come about. Ernest Holmes says, "Ignorance stays with us until the day of enlightenment, until our vision towards spirit broadens and casts out the image of a no longer useful littleness. What we now experience, we may cease experiencing if we have the will and the imagination to set our vision in an opposite direction and hold it there." And it's through this diligent changing of our attitudes and beliefs, and it's through this determination to set our vision and hold it there, and then through a fearless trust in God, an unyielding faith in our dream, that our vision will be realized. "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Whom shall I dread?"